Cris must pick a trade. All boys on Colonel Buckminster's farm were taught trades or special kinds of work in order to be prepared for adult life. One day, when Cris was 13 years of age and nearly 6 feet tall, the colonel sent for him. He wanted to talk with Cris about a trade. "What would you like to learn to do, Cris?" he asked. "You could learn to be a blacksmith, a miller, a cooper, a cabinet maker, a shoemaker, or a farmer." "I would like to work on a boat, sir," Cris said without hesitation. "But I have no boats, Cris." "I know, sir, but that is the kind of work I would like to do. I spent a lot of time down by the river watching boat builders put planks and timbers together to make boats. I've watched men put masts and sails on boats to make them go. From time to time, I've had opportunities to talk with sailors who work on big ships on the ocean. They have come out from Boston while waiting for their ships to be loaded and unloaded. I want to work on a large ship." "Unfortunately, there is no way I can help you," said the colonel, calmly studying the tall boy before him. Through the years he had watched Cris grow and had come to think of him as a member of his own family. He had come to realize that Cris was independent and felt that he was watching and waiting for something. "Since I have no boats, Cris," the colonel added with a broad smile, "suppose you learn to drive the carriage until you find something else that you would like to do." Cris realized that there was nothing more the colonel could say or do, so he said obediently, "Thank you, sir. I will do my work well and try my best to please you." He smiled and waited for further instructions. "Go tell James to teach you how to drive," the colonel went on. "Let me know each day how you are getting along." "Yes, sir," Cris said and hurried away. He had always liked Colonel Buckminster and respected him. He had hoped that somehow, even though the colonel had no boats, he would let him become a sailor. Now, it was clear that he never could become a sailor as long as he was a slave. All he could do was hope that something would happen later. So, for the present, he must try to be content. When he got home that evening, his mother was preparing supper. "Did you decide what you wanted to do, son?" she asked. "Yes, mother," he said. "I'm supposed to learn to drive the carriage." "How good!" exclaimed Mrs. Attucks. "You can drive for the colonel." "No, I don't want to drive the carriage," said Cris. "I want to become a sailor on a big ship and travel the sea. I have talked with sailors who have come out here from Boston. They have told me many interesting things about their work and the things they have seen. Some day I mean to become a sailor and learn about the sea myself." Cris spoke and looked as if he meant what he said. "You can't become a sailor as long as you're a slave," said his mother, "unless your master has ships on the sea. The colonel has no ships. Why don't you get that sailor idea out of your head and be contented to learn something here?" She stopped working and looked at him seriously. Then she added, "You used to like to watch Jonah in the blacksmith shop making showers of red sparks and hammering on his anvil. You could become a smith and learn to make things for the colonel, just as Jonah does." "I know, mother," said Cris without raising his head. Nancy went on, "You used to watch the copper making barrels and talked about how skillfully he worked to fit the wooden staves together." She paused expectantly, but Cris only let her go on talking. "You used to stop at the cabinet maker's shop to get curly shavings of wood to bring home to Phoebe. Many times you said that you wanted to learn how to make beautiful tables, beds, and chairs. Do you remember?" "Yes, I remember, but I was only thinking how nice it would be to make them for you." Nancy smiled and patted his head. He was sitting in front of the fire, deep in thought, yet trying to listen to what his mother said. Soon she gave up talking and hurried to set the table for supper. After the supper dishes were washed and put away, the family drew chairs together in front of the fire. Phoebe and her mother brought out some of their sewing. Cris wriggled his toes and studied them thoughtfully. Prince thought of things he needed to do tomorrow for Colonel Buckminster. At last Prince said, "What type of work did you choose, son?" "I didn't choose any, father. I told the colonel I wanted to work on a ship, but he asked me to learn to drive the carriage." "That was the best he could do, son, because he owns no ships." "I know, father," said Cris, "but if I were free, I could work on a ship." Mrs. Attucks looked at Cris, disturbed. Then she looked at Prince, hoping he would speak. Prince spoke sternly. "You're growing up, Cris, and you need to use your head. Try to be content here with the colonel. You can't change things." "I know, father, but I can try." "Cris!" exclaimed his mother, "you don't know what you're saying. You don't need to try to change things. Time will do that." "Your mother is right, Cris," said Prince. "Stay away from the other slaves and try to be happy. Learn to drive the carriage and learn to drive it well. Learn to do anything well that the colonel tells you to do. Remember, he is getting old and tired, and I wouldn't want him to sell you and break up our family." Cris looked shocked. "Would he do that?" Prince shrugged his shoulders. "He could, son, but I hope that he won't. I would be surprised if he sold you without talking with me first, but try not to annoy him." "I'll try, father," Cris said firmly, and he meant just that.